Equatorial Guinea is one of the smallest countries in Africa, yet its story is overflowing with contradictions, secrets, and shocks that make it unforgettable. It sits on the west coast of Central Africa, wedged between Cameroon and Gabon, but its territory is split in two. The mainland region called Rio Muni, and the islands of Bioko, Annobon, and others scattered in the Gulf of Guinea. This split geography gives Equatorial Guinea a fragmented identity, but that is only the beginning of what makes it remarkable. For many outsiders, the very existence of this country is surprising, because it is the only African nation where Spanish is the official language, a legacy of colonialism that sets it apart from its neighbors. For others, it is the oil wealth, the corruption, the beauty and the brutality that make Equatorial Guinea one of the most shocking stories in the modern world. To understand this country, one must begin with its land. Bioko Island, home to the capital city Malabo, rises from the sea with volcanic peaks covered in thick rainforest. It is stunningly beautiful, its black sand beaches meeting dense jungle where rare primates climb among the trees. The mainland, Rio Muni, is vast in comparison, but sparsely populated, covered in rainforests and mangroves, home to gorillas, elephants, and some of the richest biodiversity in Central Africa. Then there is the tiny island of Annobon, isolated in the South Atlantic, closer to São Tomé than to Malabo, where life moves at a slower rhythm, with fishing villages clinging to volcanic slopes. Equatorial Guinea's geography is dramatic, and yet its human history is even more dramatic still. Long before European powers arrived, the island of Bioko was inhabited by the Bubi people and the mainland by Fang communities. These groups had their own traditions, societies, and systems of belief. In the late 1400s, Portuguese sailors discovered the islands, naming Bioko after their captain, and soon claimed the territory. Yet Portugal eventually traded Bioko and Annobon to Spain in a little-known deal in 1778. For centuries afterward, the Spanish presence remained limited. Equatorial Guinea was considered a small, insignificant colony compared to Spain's vast empire in the Americas. But for the people living there, the colonial presence reshaped their destiny forever. Under Spanish rule, the economy centered on plantations. Cocoa and coffee became the lifeblood of Bioko, while timber and palm products were extracted from the mainland. To fuel this economy, labor was needed, and the Spanish used brutal systems of forced labor that destroyed local societies and traditions. Workers from Liberia, Nigeria, and other regions were imported, creating a mix of ethnicities and languages that shaped the colony's complex identity. By the mid-20th century, Equatorial Guinea was producing massive amounts of cocoa, but almost all the wealth flowed to Spanish settlers and European companies. Indigenous people remained marginalized, their lands controlled by outsiders. The shocking turn came in 1968, when Equatorial Guinea achieved independence. At first, there was hope, a small nation free to chart its own course, with fertile land and rich culture. But the joy quickly turned to horror under the country's first president, Francisco Macias Nguema. His rule, from 1968 to 1979, is remembered as one of the most brutal dictatorships in modern African history. Macias crushed opposition, closed schools, banned churches, and executed rivals. He declared himself president for life, and in his paranoia, turned the country into a prison. Tens of thousands of people were killed, tortured, or fled into exile. Entire professions disappeared. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, leaving the country a shell of itself. Malabo's once bustling streets fell silent as people hid in fear, and villages across the mainland burned from repression. At one point, Macias even banned the use of the word intellectual, as he saw educated people as a threat. By the time he was overthrown and executed in 1979, Equatorial Guinea had been devastated, its population traumatized and reduced by nearly a third due to killings and mass exile. Yet the next chapter was no less shocking. After Macias's fall, His nephew, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, took power. He promised stability, reconstruction, and reform. For a time, Equatorial Guinea seemed to rise again, but Obiang too became a ruler for life. Decades later, he remains in power, making him the longest-serving president in Africa. His reign has been marked by tight control, suppression of dissent, and a cult of personality that portrays him as the father of the nation. The country's fate changed dramatically in the mid-1990s with the discovery of massive oil reserves. Suddenly, Equatorial Guinea, once one of the poorest nations in Africa, became one of its richest in per capita GDP. Oil money flowed into the government, and glittering projects sprang up. Modern highways, luxury hotels, conference centers, and even an entirely new capital city called Oyala, later renamed Ciudad de la Paz, built deep in the rainforest as a symbol of progress. To the outside world, Equatorial Guinea became an example of an African petro-state, swimming in wealth. But beneath the surface, the reality was shocking. The oil wealth enriched the ruling elite while most ordinary citizens continued to live in poverty. Reports of corruption filled international headlines. Vast sums of oil money allegedly funneled into private accounts, luxury mansions in Paris and Malabo, fleets of supercars owned by the president's family, while hospitals in Malabo lacked basic supplies and schools crumbled. The contrast between riches and poverty became one of the defining stories of Equatorial Guinea. For visitors, it was surreal to drive on immaculate highways past villages without electricity or clean water, to see glimmering glass towers beside neighborhoods of wooden shacks. And yet, despite the political shadows, Equatorial Guinea remains a place of extraordinary natural and cultural wonder. The island of Bioko is one of the most biologically rich areas on Earth, home to endangered primates like the drill monkey and nesting grounds for giant sea turtles. Each year, conservationists watch in awe as leatherback and green turtles haul themselves onto the beaches to lay eggs under the starlight. On the mainland, Monte Alén National Park stretches across misty mountains and deep rainforests, a sanctuary for gorillas, chimpanzees, forest elephants, and hundreds of bird species. Few tourists visit, but those who do discover a paradise that rivals the great parks of Africa in beauty and biodiversity. The culture of Equatorial Guinea is just as fascinating. Because of its Spanish colonial history, Spanish remains the official language, making it the only Spanish-speaking country in Africa. Yet under this layer lies the culture of the Fang people, who make up the majority of the population, along with the Bubi, Ndawe, and Annabonese communities. Traditional Fang music, played with wooden drums, and the mvit, a stringed instrument, echoes in ceremonies and festivals. On Bioko, the Bubi people preserve their rituals and dances, connecting with ancestors through rhythm and song. In Malabo, Spanish architecture blends with African energy. Colonial buildings with red-tiled roofs sitting beside modern towers funded by oil wealth. Equatorial Guinea also shocks outsiders with its contrasts. It is a nation of world-class wealth on paper, yet many of its citizens survive on less than a few dollars a day. It is a country with glittering luxury hotels that sit mostly empty, and highways that lead to towns where children fetch water from streams. It is a country where political rallies praise the president as a savior, while dissidents whisper in fear. This duality defines the nation: beauty and brutality, wealth and poverty, tradition and modernity. In recent years, Equatorial Guinea has sought to reinvent itself as a destination for tourism. Campaigns promote its beaches, rainforests, and wildlife. Malabo hosts international conferences, while the island of Annabon is marketed as an untouched paradise. Yet the world remains cautious, wary of the country's reputation for corruption and authoritarianism. Travelers who come are often stunned by what they find. empty national parks brimming with wildlife, stunning volcanic lakes like Lago Biao on Bioko, and a coastline of perfect beaches with almost no visitors. For those who seek the unknown, Equatorial Guinea is a shocking revelation, a place that feels both hidden and forbidden. One cannot tell the story of Equatorial Guinea without acknowledging the resilience of its people. Despite centuries of exploitation, dictatorship, and inequality, they continue to endure and adapt. In the markets of Malabo and Bata, women sell cassava, plantains, and fresh fish, laughing and bargaining. Children play football in the streets, dreaming of becoming the next African star. Musicians sing in Spanish, fang and booby, blending traditions with modern beats. The people of Equatorial Guinea carry on, surviving in a system that has rarely served them, yet still finding joy and pride in their culture. Equatorial Guinea's story shocks because it is full of extremes. It is Africa's only Spanish-speaking nation, yet little known to the Spanish-speaking world. It is a country rich in oil and gas, yet poor in social development. It is home to pristine rainforests and endangered wildlife, yet also to authoritarian politics and corruption scandals. It is a land where history has been shaped by colonization, brutality, exile, and sudden wealth, and where the future remains uncertain. The small nation continues to intrigue outsiders. Some see it as a symbol of wasted opportunity, others as a land of untapped potential. Its beauty is undeniable. Volcanic islands rising out of the sea, dense jungles alive with the sound of birds, and primates, remote fishing villages where life has changed little in centuries. Its tragedy is equally undeniable: decades of repression, inequality, and the heavy hand of rulers who cling to power. To know Equatorial Guinea is to be constantly surprised. Few expect to hear Spanish spoken in Africa, yet here it is, on the streets of Malabo. Few expect oil wealth in such abundance, yet here it flows, changing the skyline of the capital. Few expect such biodiversity, yet the forests of Monte Alén are among the richest in the world. Few expect such a brutal history, yet the memory of Macias's terror still haunts older generations. Few expect such resilience, yet the people continue to live, laugh, and create in the face of hardship. Equatorial Guinea's story is not finished. The oil will one day run out, and when it does, the country will face a new reckoning. Will it invest in its people, in education, in tourism, in sustainable development? Or will it remain a place of hidden wealth and squandered potential? No one can say for sure. What is certain is that Equatorial Guinea, though small, demands attention. It is not a country that fits neatly into stereotypes. It is unique, troubling, beautiful, and unforgettable. Visitors who leave often carry a sense of awe and unease, struck by the country's contradictions. They remember the volcanic peaks rising from Bioko, the cries of monkeys in the rainforest, the empty beaches, the opulence of Malabo's oil-funded skyline, and the whispered conversations about politics. They carry with them the image of a nation that is both paradise and prison, both jewel and warning. Equatorial Guinea may be one of Africa's smallest countries, but its story is one of the biggest shocks on the continent. A reminder that size has nothing to do with significance, and that even the smallest places can hold the most extraordinary tales.